Go.
And all I requested to be a backup.
Great.
Perfect. Sorry if you can hear my lawn being mowed right now. It's like right outside my window. Like I either have a dog going, a
No,
lawnmower.
I have the dogs going all the time.
Yeah.
So,
All right, folks. Happy Wednesday. Nice to see you.
all right. Um, do we want to pick somebody to track time?
Oh yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
Oh, great, Delaney. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. Discuss this on camera before moving into prompts. Will there be a backup? Yes.
Yes. Yep.
How will you track time? Delaney will do it. Um, I guess we should probably start with just sharing something from the feedback from the first roundtable.
Okay.
Uh,
Well, mine's the speak more, so I'll work on interjecting more into the conversation.
which I thought was kind of funny because you did even mention that in the first
Yeah,
video.
Yeah.
Like you're aware of it for
yeah, I'm
sure.
aware. I'm aware. I'm aware. I'm just like a short spoken, like very precise, like I guess precise isn't the word, but just very direct, and that's normally
Mm.
my communication style is I just don't talk a lot just in general. So
So not a chit chatter.
no, no, not really. So it's even harder when the camera's there because it feels like less human a little bit. So
Mhm.
Yeah, that's
kind
I
right.
of
think you offered some really good perspectives last time as well. From what you did, we're able to put input.
thank you.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think that tags along with like my takeaway too is just trying to maybe listen more, speak a little less. I know that I can. Yeah, I think I'm just comfortable talking, but yeah, just trying to make sure that the conversation feels like there's like a reciprocal cadence.
Hmm. I think mine was more so just using vocabulary and coming in a little bit more strong. I actually made notes and everything this time too to like ensure that that would happen.
Great.
Yeah. I think like with the team norms, I don't think anything needs to be adjusted. I wanted to say thank you for like being able to work around everything where we had it scheduled for last week and
No,
just being able to compromise on that.
No problem. Life happens.
Yeah.
yeah, I appreciate that too. Like even on top of that, right? Like I had to change it yet again. So, um, appreciate the flexibility that you all have. I know it's hard. And there's like a lot of things going on.
Right.
Um, all right, I think that covers one. Should we just jump into introductions?
Yeah. Do you want to go first, G?
Yes, Gloria. I go by G. I use they them pronouns, and um, yeah.
I'm Chris. I know my legal name's up there, but I don't normally go by it. It's just all my stuff has, even when I submit assignments, I put my full thing on there. But conversationally, I like to go by Chris and he, him.
I'm Delaney. Do check. I feel like a lot of people don't know how to pronounce my last name. And then also, I was gonna note to you guys that like the L in my name is capitalized. It is weird. I always think like people don't know like think I don't know how to type or something, but that is how it's supposed to be. And I use she, her pronouns.
I love that, Delaney. I feel like there's a colleague I have who has last name Lopez Trujillo,
Hmm.
and I think the assumption often is that like you would put a hyphen there, but he was
Hmm.
like, no, there's no hyphen. Like I just feel like, yeah, I mean, that's your name. Like your name is with a hyphen or without like so I respect that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I mean a lot of people I meet too, they're like, you're the first Delaney I've ever met. Like I apparently that name's not very common. And so then I add that on top of it, and everyone's like, what the heck?
I think you're the first one I've ever met, so
Me
just
Yeah.
too.
to add more to
I
that track
yeah,
record.
Me too.
I get that a lot. Which is funny, like I graduated with two other Delaney's in my class.
Really?
From high school.
Wow.
Interesting.
hmm Yeah.
Okay.
I think Chris brought the
I
opening.
did. I did.
What do you
Okay.
got for us, Chris?
So it's kind of on brand with the last couple of weeks of course material. But what is a phrase you use to de-escalate conflict when situations seem tense? So, like, to just reframe the question, like you're starting to get into a little bit of a debate or any type of thing like that, and you realize that it's coming off too assertive or too aggressive in that way, and things are getting tense. Do you have something that you normally say that kind of like gets you to back off and kind of disarms the other person a little bit, like de-escalate? For me, since I wrote the question, had time to prepare. I think for me is I like to say things like you might be right or give me a second to think about that because it kind of gives you the pause.
Oh,
And
yeah.
if it's like really ramping up, it gives you that like that airtime, but it also gives the other person a little bit of power in the sense, especially for the affirmation of like you're right, you might be right. Like it validates their concerns and their perspective. And I've got a lot of success of even if I still don't fully agree, it kind of like grounds the conversation a little bit more again.
No, I like that. I would say for me, I'm a visual learner, so like a lot of times with like communication and stuff like that, I'll like, can you give me an example? Or can you explain that in a different way? Like more so I can see it better. But when you like originally asked the question, my mom has a friend and we've kind of just gone with she says this all the time and she just like when anything bad is happening, she just goes peace, love, joy, whatever it is. So like that's the thing in our family now, whenever something's like chaotic or there like a conflict arises, it's always just peace, love, joy, and we all calm down.
Nice. I mean, I think there's probably a lot of things that I use, but I think it's like mirroring, just like confirming back to the person, like, let me make sure I'm understanding what you're hearing so they can um just really have confidence that I'm picking up what they're putting down, that I am like hearing what the tension is and being able to identify it. So I think that they can often start with that. And then also probably like I can see like I'm trying to identify the feeling that they might be having. Like I can see how you might feel XYZ. And I think it's similar to, your approach, Chris. But I do feel like the validating and like what I'm hearing or what they may be feeling is a really good start to just like that olive branch, you know. So I think that's what I would say, yeah.
I like both of those options. And I feel like we talked about that too. Like those were both good ways to be like one, like an active listener, but also to de-escalate.
Yeah. It's hard to do sometimes, like and people are tense and yeah. So it takes practice. Also,
Yeah.
sometimes I think like being okay with saying I'm not sure, like I might need some time, you
Right.
Yeah,
know. I
it's
think
like
that's
setting a
good too.
boundary.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Or like even saying I might have misspoke earlier, you know?
Yeah, I'm the worst at that because I'm like, I need to know now.
Yeah.
A little bit of patience.
Week four, Tiny Desk. Share one point from the week three or week four Tiny Desk lecture that stood out to you. Does anybody want to start, or I can do it?
Go ahead, Chris.
Okay. So there was a discussion about avoidance, about it being a lose-lose, and that's something that I haven't really thought of before, when it comes to that. I always thought because it would be avoiding turning away from conflict that it would be the lose-lose. Um, but you as the one choosing to abdicate from the conflict or the position, I thought that you would lose more. But the reframing that the professor brought up was that essentially that the other individual loses like credibility with you and also strains the relationship and also like others around you pick up that something's wrong. So it strains like kind of the cohesiveness of the entire unit of whoever is involved in it. So I thought that that was a pretty interesting aspect of avoidance.
Yeah, that stood out to me as well. Like how she said, like, when you avoid them, they lose that like sense of belonging,
Yeah.
like everybody craves. But so it is like a lose-lose in that sense.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like, um, I think this kind of touches on some other things that we'll probably talk about later, but just how, sometimes the with hard things in general, but this like applies to conflict, like there's not a way around something. I feel like sometimes it's just through. So,
Yeah.
just kind of addressing it and yeah, moving forward.
Guys, would either of you say like that avoidance is your like go-to
Your
mode?
style, yeah.
Not normally. It has to be something that like I feel like I can't win, so I have to like go around it because it turns into like a power dynamic that
Mm,
have I'm not on the higher end of it or I'm not at a place where I could actually compete, or it has to be something like the time or like resources that I would like there's no winning.
mm,
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm sure that you've seen like almost got sucked into debates, whether if it's like online or in classrooms or at work or something, and it's just like not worth really going after the thing.
hmm
Right.
Um, and especially if it's something that doesn't really have a lot of bearing, like you're not going to lose a lot of respect for the person for having that like perspective or whatever. It's not like a really big thing that might even be addressed again. Like there's no point in really going for
hmm
it. It's like
Yeah.
those types of things.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of a natural segue for mine, which was the lecture she had. I think it was week 4. It was the conflict styles and the power. And I mean, like my little assessment leaned more towards collaboration. And I think that makes sense for me, like um, just in my role. I'm often trying to like be collaborative, and I think there's a place for everything. I think that was kind of the main takeaway for me is like, you know, just understanding like the whole like the styles are really just like your toolkit. Like how do you, make assessments around when one might be better than the other and all the context going into them. And yeah, so I felt like that was like a takeaway for me. And I think that oftentimes I can not avoid, but like there's like sometimes I feel like I really want more time. If I'm avoiding, it's because I want to like prepare more. Like I'm just postponing really. And in my work, like, because I'm an HR director, people can take what I say like as like the rubber stamp of whatever it is. I always feel like I want to be really careful,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that makes
HR would
sense.
be so hard.
Yeah, So,
No, I think mine would have been, well, the thing that stood out to me the most from week 4, Tiny Desk, was competition. I mean, I've been an athlete my whole life. It's kind of like was instilled in me. Like everyone's kind of not the enemy, but like competing is like the main goal in life, winning really in general.
mhm,
And so like learning like her speaking about one like how the whole world is competition, like I think she mentioned like box offices and social media and just
There's so
social
many ways.
comparison.
Yeah.
Yeah, social comparison in general. And but then like learning that it's a win-lose and really like when you're competing against somebody, you have complete disregard for them. And because all you're worried about is winning.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it really made me rethink a lot of not just like sports in general, but conflict as well. Like, because there are people that just get in arguments just to win. Like, it's kind of just their goal. And
Mm.
then I work in a law firm. So, I mean, that's all we want to do is win. We're competing against the other prosecutors all the time. So it was just kind of like when she said it's complete disregard for the other person and like that they lose trust and stuff like that, it really was like, wow, like that's probably not the best to be surrounded by all the time, my whole life. Yeah.
Do you feel like there's like your what's like your second kind of best or like the one you lean into
Mm,
after competition?
um, I would say accommodation too. Like
Mm,
I I mean, I've always been like consider myself a people pleaser
mhm,
unless it comes to sports or something of the sorts like
mhm.
that.
Where
Um,
it's like socially acceptable to compete.
yeah,
Is that what you mean? Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But like with my siblings and people like that, I'm
Well, siblings
I'm
are
a
like
competitor.
they're different. They're in
Yeah.
a different category.
Yeah.
Uh, cool.
Yeah.
Did we cover that? Did we get all that? Um, yeah, week four media. Who wants to go first?
I can.
Okay.
I did the art of active listening.
That's what I did too.
Yeah, and I thought I mean, my dad is the type of person like you talk to him and you know he's not listening. It's just it's so incredibly frustrating. Or he's like thinking of the next thing to say. You can just tell just by
Mhm.
the way he's taking it all in. So I kind of just took a lot away from this in the sense of like not necessarily like how I need to listen, but like noticing how other people are listening.
Mm,
Being able to like kind of pick up on like some examples she said was asking good questions or like the questions were like what am I missing? Why do I need to listen? Those kinds of things where I was like kind of picking up on one, like obviously stuff that I could practice, but also like picking up on if other people are listening as well.
mm. Yeah, that's pretty good. I think that's a good exercise. I wonder, like, just spending a day being like, I'm just gonna really tune into like how other people are listening. I bet you'd learn a lot.
Right.
No, I chose the same one, partly because I really like Amy Gallo. So in my work, I tend to find myself reading a ton of like Harvard Business Review like material, and so she's just like a really common voice, and writes a ton of great articles. So that drew me there. But I think what stood out for me is just that, yeah, like remembering that like active listening it's not about silence. It's just really about trying to manage like what's happening for us internally. Um, I think like on the kind of flip side of your example with your dad, like instead of just like kind of suppressing maybe our notion of like I have to have a response, but like really I think it can help us manage internally like how we are cluing into what is really underneath, what is really the problem, that we may be hearing. So that was really helpful. Um, and then yeah, like I think I go by this. Um, I've heard this a lot. Like we don't necessarily need like agreement, we need alignment. And I think that kind of goes into that notion of like that's touched on is like you don't need to agree in order to really be active listening, like to lean into that. So that was really something that stood out for me. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean, in like my HR world, um, sometimes I really have to, I'm trying to discern between like policies and facts and like, just really trying to hear like where's the real tension at. So I feel like it comes into play a lot in my work.
Right. I think, like I said earlier, I'm like a visual learner. So, like, her trampoline metaphor was really nice. Like, just thinking of being a listener in that way. I think it was like instead of being a sponge and just like kind of sitting there, taking everything and being a trampoline and like being reactive.
Totally. When she said that, I was like, my metaphor, and for my metaphor assignment, I used a sponge. So
Mhm.
I was like, oh yeah, it's much better.
That makes sense. Yeah, the like kind of just waiting to respond goes into that like pseudo listening thing where it's like they're just trying to pick things from their argument to like make a counterclaim. Like whatever you're saying, like they're not listening to what your actual frame or perspective is. They're just like trying to focus on how to rebuttal by
Mhm.
using picking and choosing.
Right.
Yeah, like our amygdalas get hijacked, like our nervous systems kind of get like hijacked by like the desire to be in like fight or flight mode. And I think that's what I mean by like being internal and like trying to like calm those things and just be reassured that that's not what's happening. Like someone else is trying to communicate with you in good faith.
Yeah.
Right.
Uh, for mine, I did Rules of Civil Engagement by Big Think, and a lot of that was kind of just reframing uh the statement, like to make sure that you're kind of on par with what they're discussing.
Mm,
So even if you don't agree with them, you could still kind of ask like probing questions to kind of get a sense of where they're actually at. That way it kind of disarms, it kind of separates the person from the discussion
mm,
and always approaching like those types of conflicts that with a from a position of like politeness and candor to keep it like on task and to keep like the emotional regulation down um in order to like remove the idea of perceived blocking or like other perceived forms of conflict, like making sure that you're actually focused, kind of what you just said about focusing on where the tension point is,
Mhm.
instead of just coming up with like assumptions during the conversation.
Yeah. That video was kind of eye-opening too, of like just like how much etiquette does go into just simply listening and like responding well. Civility, as I think he was putting it.
Yeah,
hang on a second, I gotta let my dog out of this room before you say the right name. All
no problem.
right. So the metaphor assignment. Um, why do you think the metaphor assignment belongs in a conflict management class?
I would say I think it shows like conflict arises in a lot more ways than we would think because I feel like people have a fixed mindset on what conflict is, where it's
Mm,
like all negative and like only these bad things, whereas like it really does apply to so many different types of things in this world. Like even like I said earlier with like the competition, how she was bringing up like just propaganda,
mm.
advertisements,
Yeah.
basic life things cause can't conflict. So I think that's what really stood out to me about like I remember I watched one on like a plant and I was like, this is kind of crazy to think of like how much conflict can even just be portrayed through a plant.
It's crazy, yeah.
Yeah, it is a good perspective. Um, I think it's good just because of how things are framed. So like we always try to make patterns of previous experiences. So having using a metaphor to describe a situation helps kind of ground. I mean, it's like a double-edged sword though, because sometimes you just like you hyper focused on what happened in the previous experience, and it kind of overrides like you being present in the now. But I think that it's good because it helps you relate and like decode and process the information a lot easier.
Mhm.
No, those are great points. That's kind of like what I was thinking. Like, I think it just helps us with a mental model and things that are familiar and like, things that we experience in like everyday language. So it feels like the just common ground when we can like use things that we're familiar with to explain like complex ideas or concepts. Like, so, I mean, I think it touches on being a visual learner because you can like visualize, right? I think it touches on totally your point here, Chris, about being a double-edged sword because your assumption about like how familiar something should or shouldn't be could be dependent on like what that person's, you know, perspective is or the context, just like the cultural frame that they bring. But generally, for the masses, I feel like it does kind of just allow us to put mental models to things and communicate in a more simplified way.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I've heard so many times like you don't really know something until you can teach it,
Oh
like to
yeah.
someone else. So I feel like that was kind of cool just to see how deep everyone's knowledge in it really went because having to teach it through the example.
Yeah, I mean the whole like Reddit thread of like talk to me like I'm a fifth grader. Like
Right.
explain physics, to a fifth grader. That tracks.
Well, then just like how everyone has different listening styles and all these things, it's like everyone had a different way of teaching too.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, totally. I feel like was it this class? Because that feels like it really tracks like with a conversation or something that's come up recently, just how like even teachers can really find a method that works for them, but not every student and every learner learns the same way. So there can be a disconnect between styles, just generally.
Yeah. Kind of like the conflict modes too.
Totally. It's totally applicable. Um, Great. How are folks doing with their book? Remind me what book you guys are doing, Chris.
I'm doing good
Delaney.
inside, and I'm about halfway. I'm gonna push through this weekend to finish it by the end of next week. So, I could just answer the whole question with it. So one concept that comes up, I'll start with the quote. It's on page 142, and it's talking about not listening, essentially, which is
Mhm.
interesting because we already kind of talked about it in this meeting a little bit. But the more connected we feel to someone, the more we want to comply with their requests. Listening is essentially a barometer for the strength of a relationship in any given moment. So like the book is framed through like bringing up, kids, but it goes into like the like interpersonal relationships as well that um the relationship that you build, whether if it's like colleagues or employers or whoever, they're going to be more interested in reaching a compromise or collaborative discussion with you when it comes to like negotiating conflict in TKI model, as opposed to just like you going up to an absolute stranger and then demanding something of them in like a competing sense. Like nobody's going to listen to you at that point. So it's kind of just you treat which model you would use to in relation to it, but it also kind of just goes in your degree of willing to like actually listen to them and go through a dialogue with them to get to the result, as opposed to just shutting down. Or like in the chapter, it discusses yelling, like never to yell at your kids because it just puts them into like a fight or flight response, and
Mm.
there's no really returning from that because it just floods them. Um, So it's just talking about like emotional regulation and then building relationships, especially with people that you have conflict with frequently, because it'll help like get you to a goal that both of you want.
Hmm. Yeah, like getting mad doesn't really solve anything. Or like aggression. I feel like, yeah, when you come at somebody aggressively, even a stranger or somebody you know, I mean, no one's really going to take that a good way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's all kind of through their lens too, though, right? Like what like they assume you should kind of know about a situation. Like why is someone approaching you aggressively? Like
Yeah.
I feel like just getting really curious, you know, because there's probably some perception that they might have, and I don't know, it's yeah, but those are really good points. Um,
I feel like that goes into like kind of linguistics that we've been talking about,
yeah.
Yeah.
kind of just shape what people think, just
Mhm,
language in general, whether it's like yelling, cursing, whatever it may be.
mhm,
Yeah. And just the words that you use mean things to different people. So if
mhm,
they're used to like a more formal structure of dialogue and you're speaking to them super informally, but they think that like their status or like their age or whatever, um, they'll take it more offensively. It's like that kind of thing.
mhm.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, there's
You said
just the
like
sense
parent-child.
making.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. I'm reading my book is Rule Makers and Rule Breakers. I'm reading on my Kobo. So it's page 262. I feel like I've been kind of loitering in this like last couple of chapters, so it's been a little slow going for me, but I'm in a chapter about organization, so I felt like yeah, I was like kind of looking to get into this chapter, but it's is your organization tight or loose? So um, you know, the whole kind of idea around the book is based in like tight and loose cultures and just, you know, kind of showing up but for the concepts that we've kind of seen in some of the other reading, but just how tight cultures have like stronger norms and there's just like, you know, less room to like deviate away and less room for that. And then loose cultures, you know, their norms are, you know, more malleable and there's tends to be a lot more room for creativity. Um, and I think for me, like it's the takeaway is like there isn't like a good or bad, you know, it really is fairly neutral. It's just different. And I think, you know, the whole idea here is just like how you interpret something, you know, can be based on what people, so this kind of just tracks really what we were just talking about. It just can be, you know, based in how people, what expectations they have, what norms they have. Um, but the quote that I have is because organizational norms aren't always visible, diagnosing a company's relative tightness or looseness requires a deep dive into understanding its practices, its people, and above all else, its leaders. So this specific chapter, it's kind of just going over like a merger between two big companies and how ideally like there was from a leader's perspective there were all these benefits about what they can achieve by merging, but really without some of the due diligence to understand how big of an impact the difference in cultures would be and what kind of work that would entail. So that's kind of it feels applicable to me in my work, just as not necessarily a merger per se, but even just a difference in like my programmatic area, like how, you know, one area has a different view and different norms than another area, and just like keeping in mind that we kind of have to dig deep sometimes to really uncover like what are the norms that you're attaching yourself to and get curious and that really is like from my perspective as someone who has organizational responsibility, like, I need to be asking thoughtful questions to uncover that.
Do you consider yourself like a leader in your workplace too?
Yeah, I'm on the leadership team. There's 8 of us.
Okay. So yeah, you probably have some great takeaways from that then as
Yeah.
well.
Would you say that you have more loose or more tighter?
I think it's interesting. My work is research, right? So it's like evidence-based. And there is, I think, a big need we're also remote. So from a cultural standpoint, I feel like our culture is pretty loose. But I think that there's times where we need like some tighter processes, and that can, you know, that there's some tension there, in how that shows up. And yeah, I mean that's kind of the challenge that I often manage in some roundabout way. Um, but people have different expectations about, their work, and we don't, I mean, for the most part, we're pretty loose culture, but that's often the problems that I have are having to sort through the
Hmm.
impacts of a loose culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm reading Atlas of the Heart, which has been very interesting. I think even in, I don't know if it was week 5 or week 6, um, she gave out the list of all the subjects that Brene Brown talks about in that book.
Mhm.
And so it's kind of a lot, like every chapter is like around like 4 or 5 different vocabulary words. So and a lot of what I've learned so far has been kind of stuff that you like know about, but she obviously goes into a lot more detail and opens up like your eyes to a lot more than you would think above the baseline of what the word means. For example, she went into jealousy, and a lot of that was like the difference between jealousy and envy, which I feel like people think they're the same things. I know I did. And so she went into like the big difference in those, and kind of that's what the whole book is. It's just how we see things and how they actually are. Um,
Mhm.
for this, I brought one of the words that she used that I'd never heard of. It's German, so because we don't really have a word for it in the English language, it's Schadenfreude, and it's spelled crazy. I literally had to look up how to pronounce it. But the definition is the pleasure or joy derived from someone else's suffering or misfortune, which I'm just like, the fact that there's a word for that is terrible, but it really does feel like sometimes like people are just kind of out to get you. That And then even sometimes that was in the chapter of jealousy and envy, like wanting what somebody else has, or having that like interpersonal conflict of like not knowing what your real values are and coming out onto other people. So yeah, I thought that I would share that because, and then thought I would share the opposite of it, which is just Freudenfreude, which is like obviously getting pleasure out of somebody else's pleasure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a much nicer thought.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think that tracks with the next question here, the next item in terms of week 5. Just yeah, like just the emotional regulation, and like that was a pretty good point. Just being precise. It made me think of like I have a emotion wheel here. So it kind of goes over this has like 6 main emotions you can see in the middle there. And then I also have this deck that I've used in work. Again, it's work. And it's like a little deck called Emotions and Feelings. And it names 8 different emotions versus 6. But um, names the emotions and then all the different feelings that kind of go along with it. But I feel like being able to talk really precisely about what you're hearing in conflict and identifying, like being curious about what someone is experiencing and having a larger vocabulary to lead into that, I feel like goes a really long way for just awareness and, again, an olive branch to, show that you're really listening and hearing what someone is trying to communicate.
Yeah. I wrote it down. Um, like the effect labeling that
Hmm.
we talked about last week with just like how putting words into putting your emotions into words.
Hmm.
I mean, anything's pretty hard to label. That's why there's so many different cards and words on
Hmm.
your wheel, you know?
Yeah.
That makes sense though, because like a lot of times when you get upset, if people just use the word anger, like everything could pour into anger. You could be afraid, you could be sad, you could just be
Hmm.
hurt or upset, but like anger makes it sound like it's more like a violent type
Hmm.
thing or like a more insurmountable thing. But like the other thing, like even if it's shame, like you can kind of just dissect what the real problem is there more if you have the word on the table as opposed to just having just like three emotions. So
Yeah.
Right. I think in the lecture, even she like mentioned like how they do that in like movies and TV shows, how like their nonverbal reactions as well, like just their mannerisms, stuff that you can tell, but they only have like those three that they're supposed to be able to portray: angry, sad, happy.
So much more
But like,
complex than that.
yeah, but they have
You
to make it
know?
clear so everyone kind
Yeah.
of catches the hint
Because
and
they're,
can
yeah.
relate
Because it's a
to it.
universal language, right? Like, yeah. Well, in most cases, for people that are seeing, I suppose.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you have something that stuck out to you, Chris, from the lecture?
yeah, about like just going back on the emotional regulation thing, that if you kind of just let those boundaries go and you're both just like super heated and in the moment that it just turns into a power dynamic type situation where just like the logic kind of exits from it. We kind of already discussed the perception of words and like how different words mean different things to different people. So that was just one thing that I wanted to put in there, but I kind of all talked about it with the book that just um the disconnect could just come from that. Uh, just the intercultural boundaries that are being crossed. But I think we kind of discussed most of the stuff that I noticed from the tiny desk.
Yeah.
Have
Well, and
you?
then she like started out with like words can be reductions even of like you're trying to say something, but you're not even saying what you actually really feel because you don't even know how to explain it. And then it could be like a reduction of how you actually feel.
Totally. I wonder if that's like, if someone does that, if they're like, is it an indicator that they maybe are prone to avoidance or they're leaning into avoidance? Um, or like, what do you say? Like, what do you say when you're maybe noticing someone doesn't quite have the right word? Like, how do you create space for them to
Hmm.
kind of just like investigate a little bit more?
Right.
Yeah, because you don't want to necessarily like feed them. Like, are you feeling this? Like, 'cause sometimes those questions are helpful, but
They're
sometimes the
leading, yeah, it could be
defensive.
leading.
Yeah,
I also think like going off of what you said, Chris, the thing that stood out to me, I wrote it down. She said, part of emotional regulation and intelligence, emotional intelligence is being able to take in your own experience. Because like I feel like we try to base it so much off of what the other person's feeling or like how the situation is, but it really is deciphered on you and your regulation of that.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about that, Delaney, because I feel like I can relate to that. You know, I'm like, okay, what I think often I also have a tendency to want to understand someone else's experience that
Mhm.
I delay or avoid like processing my own feeling about it. And I think I have sometimes an interesting, like there's a lot of shoulds, like what is a reasonable feeling that is acceptable to folks? And like I may like just attach myself to that because it's easier for people to assume or get, but I'm not really fully processing it, and I'm often just like it's just easier. It I don't want to say it's lazy, but I think I'm doing it out of a desire to want to understand other people,
Right.
you
Like
Yeah.
know?
seeing
Hmm.
things. Yeah.
I think it's like kind of digging into empathetic listening that you're like trying to use your own experience too of like how I would feel in like this situation. And you're trying to like truly understand the emotions from their perspective. But it's like it's hard too because you don't want to like what you said, like sometimes you need time to process G as opposed to just like immediately trying to go into dissecting it.
Yeah.
So
Mhm. Did you guys have a video from week 5 that stood out to you?
yeah,
I personally did the Brene Brown one because obviously I'm reading Atlas of the Heart, which she wrote. So I kind of wanted to see what that was like, which I thought was really interesting. Not what I would have expected from her. But it was kind of like placing the blame, and she started out with the example of like she dropped a cup of coffee and then immediately blamed it on her husband because it was his fault that she had to drink 2 cups of coffee that morning. She didn't drop the first one, but she dropped the second one, but her husband had to get home late. And so she had to go to bed late. And it was just interesting, like how we immediately just are so quick to place the blame on somebody else because we ourselves don't want to take accountability.
yeah. I watched that one as well, and for the discussion, and I think that it brings up a good point too about like how blaming it just like hurts. You know, it's just like your way of expressing being hurt immediately, but it's actually not effective because like a lot of people who are like super big blamers like immediately try to uh like they don't actually confront the real problem at that point. One, they don't like frame their own accountability and be like, how did I get here myself with it? But they also, in circumstances where they need to confront the other person, because like the blame might be partially correct, they've already wasted their energy on being mad in that like 10-15 second period. So I don't know. I found myself in places like that before where I blamed somebody, but it was something that like it was part both of our faults, but I also needed to address the other party. But then I
Mhm.
had to like artificially kind of get pumped up to talk about it again to do the confrontation of it. So
Right. Where she talked about like how blame is vulnerable or accountability is vulnerable, whereas brain or blame is just like what did she say, discharging pain.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think that though I just keep on coming back to how much it can mend, like and how much it can really like in terms of repair, right? Like how far it can take you by just having accountability
Hmm.
and accepting accountability for that, for whatever kind of portion that is, even if it's small, just goes such a long way to just like interest based, right? Like what interest do you have versus goal? Like, um, but yeah, I talked about or I watched the like It's All Right to Cry. So, that really just feels like, the point is just that feelings are valid. Like, and I think I just had an experience the other day where I had a staff member come up to me and just feel really, she had a lot of feelings about what someone else did, and she's entitled to those feelings, right? Like people have different takes on how to approach something, and I just mentioned to her like that, her feelings are really valid. I think one of the things in the video too is just like noting that it's temporary,
Hmm.
you know, which I think kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about like, um, they're real, but the feelings will change, and there's sometimes just not like there's no around, there's just through, and if you get through it, like, it's just everything is temporary. It's kind of a mantra that I have for good or for bad. So like that is like be in gratitude when you have something, when it's positive, and when it's hard, like know that it won't last forever. So that video really kind of reminded me of that. And um yeah, just expelling. I think again, like expelling the kind of bad feeling, like expressing the emotion and the feeling helps process it and get through it.
Yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense.
that video was fun.
Yeah.
Before we move on to the next question, we are at 50 minutes.
Oh, great. Thanks for mentioning that, Delaney.
Mhm.
So we got one. Yeah, we got a few more. All right. Shall we dive into it then?
Yeah, did you want to go, Chris?
Uh, sure, I'll do it. For Stump the Professor, each person should choose one set of questions from the previous class. Which group did you choose? So I did pineapple pizza,
Hmm.
and the first question, I gotta move my screen. It's blocking it. But how did you convince someone that resolution isn't a technical problem? I think she did a really great job kind of explaining that it's not mechanical. Like you're not trying to just fix a system in a process. You're trying to like understand and have a dialogue and kind of understand the perspectives of both people. She used a washing machine analogy that was really good. Like it's not fixing the belt of a washing machine. Like you can't just do interchangeable parts to like fix this problem. Some solution there are some conflicts like there is no fixing it. It's just kind of coming into where you want um, the resolution to be for it. And sometimes you get there, sometimes you don't. So it's a lot more fluid because you're dealing with cultures, you're dealing with people, you're dealing with emotions and interpersonal relationships. So it's not like a how to do manual. So coming at it from that perspective um, is kind of just the wrong way to approach it. Uh, how do you get someone to re-engage after stonewalling to find a resolution? Um, So essentially, it's just like if somebody's flooded, like you can't just use like bust out the TKI model and be like, I'm gonna try
This
this
one.
approach this time. Yeah, because they've completely just like shut off, and you kind of just have to reapproach. And the first thing you do is you just kind of separate, have a cooldown time. So I mean, technically you are using avoiding at that point, but you can't just like go into a part or like try to reframe the discussion or do anything like that because you've reached a place of like just absolute diminishing returns with it. So she brought up some good answers to it. Like have personal self-regulation, like make sure you're calmed down too, and you're not almost at a point of breaking yourself. You could acknowledge your part in the conversation of like what caused it to get to that point of escalation. You could give some power back to the other person by um, asking them to continue the conversation later on, or like what aspects do you want to talk about specifically. And then you kind of just have to like come together and re-enter the conversation with having uh, explain each other's like goals and expectations of like what does success look like, what does the resolution look like for both parties, like what do you want kind of deal. And then just having the like your boundaries set that are those attainable, kind of thing. Sometimes they're not, so you kind of just kind of move on. And then the last thing was how do you manage conflict via text? And essentially, it's really hard because tone is a huge part of all languages. So the emotional state of the receiver, they have to like decode what you're sending. So if it looks hostile or like this is something I have to watch because like I said, I don't say very much. So like when I'm emailing, I'm pretty much just doing it direct. And like there are plenty of times where I've gotten into a situation where somebody thought that I was mad or like the whole thing. And essentially like the goal there is just to switch mediums. Like even if you're just like talking on the phone or choosing to do face to face, like once conflict kind of starts and it starts escalating, you kind of just have to shift from there. So like using text really isn't a good place to try to really talk about how you're feeling. And I think
Yeah.
that's a good life lesson there. So
That was such a good question to ask.
yeah, it's impossible, I think. So I was really curious about that too, because like normally I just shift it into a different medium, and I was wondering if there was a different way, but that was pretty spot on.
I can't believe you got called out for that in your emails.
Yeah, well, I used to work for a large corporate company as a middle manager, and other people, there's a lot of ego in a lot of big companies. So if you say something that they took that you're being dismissive or something like that, especially if I was dealing with somebody that was sales facing, like it was a big problem. So
Hmm.
there.
Because I feel like emails are supposed to be direct and forward.
Not always, I guess. Some people
This
don't feel.
depends on the culture.
Yeah.
True.
Well, it's also their emotional state. Like that's something that she brought up. So if they're panicking about something and you just give them like a guideline list or something like that, it just seems like you're just like taking the SOP or the policy and throwing it at them. I could
Mhm.
see why they would get upset about that, but like mainly I was just trying, I had to deal with a lot of people, a lot of individual problems. So if there was a just a guide that I could send that they could follow themselves, like, but because I didn't solve the problem like immediately, like it seemed like I was being dismissive. So like there were several times where that came into like an
Hmm.
unnecessary conflict. Normally, it was able to solve over the phone, but every once in a while, I'd have somebody slamming into my office about just being
Uh,
not to escalate that. I was very good friends with HR though, so
Nice.
that's helpful. Yeah, mine was the good insiders and good outsiders. So I feel like those are, I think, good questions just generally about, I feel like they all kind of touched on this, but just like how a positive outcome is definitely not something that is predetermined, right? Like you got to kind of go into something with just the idea that, um, yeah, I mean, there's wiggle room, but if you're prepared to kind of engage, like again, in good faith, then that's where you can kind of really reach some common ground, but understanding like what are your boundaries? What are your needs? Out of that. And I feel like what really stood out was just like the difference between compromise and collaboration, and they're definitely not the same thing. But collaboration is really kind of moving into something where you have, you're caring about the other person's interests as well to try and reach some end. Um, and also, I think that last question, it made me think about a podcast that Brene Brown had. Like she put it out like prior to her more recent book that has come out. Like she did the Adam Grant had a podcast, and she's just talking about um, two different types of empathy. She's talking about like cognitive empathy and then effective empathy and the difference, and how, effective empathy you can kind of really absorb, like put yourself in someone else's shoes, but you can do that to this extent where like the lines blur between like how like your ability to potentially positively influence the situation And so like having like cognitive empathy is just like accepting someone else's truth, even if you like maybe you can't like it to be empathetic, you really have to put yourself in their shoes and like but maybe you're having a hard time like mentally gymnastics like trying to figure out like well I can't, that would never happen to me but it's like really trying to um just accept someone's truth as like as real and that is like a really effective way to be empathetic because you're treating them like with respect and like your experience like it's like kind of also touching on what that video was talking about where like the feelings are valid. But yeah, I feel like there is that effective empathy where like too much empathy could potentially be hindering.
My question, I chose the same set of questions, and I actually kind of had like a different takeaway from the too much empathy because she even said like there is no such thing as too much empathy. It's more so like what you're willing to give up for the other person because you are supposed to look at yourself too, like I said earlier, taking in your own experience and thoughts. Um, but that's what intrigued me towards those questions in the first place. Because I mean, I said I'm a people pleaser, and I've been told actually before, like you are too empathetic, and when in reality, it's not the empathy that's I'm too much of. It's just the selfishness that I lack. So it can, and but I think that can come off as that like a losing situation for both sides as well because if I'm just being empathetic to you and only caring about you then you're not even getting to know me and how I feel and then it gets into like resentment and those types of things on my side and then it becomes a lose-lose kind of thing, kind of like with the avoidance where it's like both even though nothing's really being done and it feels like empathy is a good answer, it's still a lose-lose situation. And then
Yes.
the other question that stood out to me was the how do you address conflict with a positive outcome? Um, I'm pretty optimistic usually. But I think what did she say? Um, we can't control positive outcomes. So that was like a big takeaway for me because I feel like one, I do like to be in control, and two, I am pretty positive. So having to hear that of like you can't control a positive outcome, it was kind of hard for me to hear, but also validating in the same sense. Yeah.
So when they say too much empathy, are they just saying like the boundary aspect of it, or are they just saying that you try to like
I mean, you
in
can't
their
help
shoes too much?
everybody.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I mean my takeaway is that yeah, like if there's a lot of like there's a lot of really horrible things that happen in this world, right? And I think like let's just say someone is trying to be empathetic to a lot of misfortunes and that someone else is experiencing, but they're doing it in such a way where like that experience is like maybe debilitating to the person experiencing it. And if you're empathetic, you could potentially also become debilitated by it. And like
Mhm.
your better position could be to positively influence. So it's like being able to acknowledge that, but also still be in a position to potentially positively influence like that person or that situation. So I think that's like the effective empathy would be that, you know, being debilitated by that and the cognitive empathy would be like acknowledging it, owning it and being able to be in a position. So I think it's just yeah, I think it seems to me, Delaney, like it's kind of the same thing. It's just maybe worded a little differently, like framed slightly differently.
Yeah.
Yeah, but useful. Useful
Right.
because I think it's like, oh yeah, just awareness.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. We should probably move on to the next question.
I'm gonna write down.
As a team, create 3 questions about the conflict information we've covered so far.
Did you guys already have some in mind?
Mhm.
Yes. I did write one about avoiding because it really stuck out with me earlier on. And I just asked, is avoiding really a lose-lose if it allows you to reapproach the issue later on with better context, even if the problem's never discussed again? Like, say it just goes away like it's a small issue. I don't understand how that isn't a win, per se. Because if it's not something that's like a reoccurring problem that you're just not aligned at that time, you decide to not engage. I don't really understand how that's like an issue again. Or like how that's not a win-win because you didn't go into like you didn't use resources, you didn't really damage face with the other person if you just move past it. Like I don't see it like universally always as a lose-lose. So I have it written out cleaner, but I just wanted to explain my thoughts beyond the question.
Yeah, I like that. I think we even talked about that earlier a little bit. I mean, I think that's also why it is like a style too, because I mean it could be beneficial in some conflicts. Like you said, it's not, I mean, absolutely necessary.
What's yours,
Uh,
Delaney?
I wrote like, are there conflicts with absolutely no answer? Like there's nothing you can do about it, if that makes sense.
Other conflicts
With no
Like
uh,
that
answer.
can't be managed, I guess.
that have no resolution or like you can't even use the tools.
Like kind of like a thing about like family member, like people that are like, yeah, we got into a fight and I don't talk to my sibling ever. Like I'm never gonna talk to her again. You know, like those kind of conflicts, like is there are
Uh,
there specific conflicts or like
Hmm.
I mean like even like I thought about too like a different question would be like horoscope signs, like how people say like they're compatible or not, like different
Hmm.
styles and stuff like that. Are there just some that just cannot, there's no answer to their conflicts. Like there's just never going to be a resolution.
Oh,
I
I
feel
think
like,
everything's like situational or contextual.
what about you, G?
I'm trying to write this down.
I was gonna say we could all text it into the group chat too.
Yeah,
It's
I'll
And
probably
we
say
could,
mine out loud just for the purposes of the recording, though. When power is unequal, so I feel like this happens with me and my role a lot, but when power is unequal, what does genuine collaboration look like? And how can a person with more power avoid placing the burden of adaptation on the person with less power? So it's just like recognizing that there's a power dynamic, and if your genuine interest is, you know, to be collaborative, then how do you, as a person with more power, like own more, like, or how do you just avoid making the person with less power have to adapt to you?
hmm.
But I'll put it in the chat so it's clear.
Yeah, I like that.
so you mean like if you're in a higher position of power, like how do you not just immediately go into compete? Like for the people that actually just want to collaborate, like they're being not altruistic, but it's like they don't want to just be a dominant force. Is that what you're saying for it?
No, I think like if you genuinely like I'm in a position of power, I genuinely want to collaborate with a committee to like come up with some sort of new practice around something. And collectively, I really want it to be a collective endeavor, right? A collaborative endeavor where people's perspectives are like equally heard and voiced. But me as a person with power, I have to like, what do I need to do to kind of diffuse some of my power, right? To allow these other contributors to not be forced, even like just through the power dynamic, not through like what you're aspiring to, but to adapt. Like even if I interrupt them, if I speak more than they do, if I, somehow like dismiss them, like what do I do to kind of make sure that they're not just adapting to me because I'm in a more powerful position. But the dynamic exists, right? Because like I am in a leadership position, but my interest is to like really like I genuinely want it to be collaborative.
Yeah, I see what you mean now. You don't want them to just be like appeasing your perspective
Yeah,
because you're in a position of
yeah.
power. I get it now.
But that's at that like that's them adapting, right? Like that's potentially just like adapting to that situation and that power dynamic. Potentially. It's just awareness.
Like them being forced into it kind of thing.
Well, like they may just find themselves as like maybe they're someone who's just like prone to recognizing authority.
Right.
So like they don't speak their mind about something. Maybe they feel like, oh, if I say that, that's like there's dissent,
Hmm.
right? And they don't want to be like a troublemaker, because I'm like, oh, I don't want to get in trouble with HR. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, I'm actually like, I really want to hear what your perspective and your experience and like how you want to like how like what you bring. So I feel like that's how it kind of can play out in my work. And so it is
Yeah.
like,
Like, how do you kind of turn that like HR label off?
mhm. But like it could apply to any other situation, like family dynamics, teacher
Yeah.
dynamics, like any dynamic that like wealth inequity, like people like it happens when there's just perceived power
Yeah.
and
I think
and like, but if the goal is to be collaborative, then how do you is
yeah.
this bringing these different dynamics into it? So yeah.
I feel like it comes up with like families a lot too. Like
Mhm.
me and my mom have a good way, like she can flip the mom switch off real quick and just be a friend, you know? Whereas
Mhm.
like my dad is constantly in dad mode. You gotta kind of watch out what you say to him, you know? So I totally get that.
Putting it in the chat now.
I think I'm gonna think of a way to rephrase mine a little bit. Do you guys want to move on to conflict mapping?
Yeah.
What movie do you guys think you're gonna use?
I'm thinking The League of Their Own. Uh, since there's so many, like, all the characters have like really diverse backgrounds, so it's going to be really interesting to watch them do it. And then there's the very obvious, like, expectation that like women can't play baseball is like the main theme of a huge portion of the conflict. And then like Tom Hanks's character is super degrading towards them in the beginning of the movie. I've seen it before, so I'm also
Hmm.
picking it for that reason, so I understand the plot, so I could just focus on the characters themselves and how they interact with one another. But I think that it just brings a lot of like course material of um, like a lot of examples that I could draw out.
Yeah, I would agree. That is a good movie.
I love
And
that
there's
movie.
so many different characters and stuff you could draw from, for sure.
I mean, that's the movie I was gonna choose too, and one because it's one of my favorites. It's like definitely from childhood. But there's like, yeah, lots of cool like the sister dynamic, the like, you know, the coach like drunk dynamic, like even like fighting against himself, like, not even the team, like the little kid dynamic, you know, the crying kid. I don't know if you remember that scene, like Stillwell Angel. And
Yes.
yeah. but yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I feel like you can go into. I'm excited about that one.
I'm in between 42 and Air.
Mhm.
I've seen Air before and I actually really enjoyed that movie. I think I would love to rewatch it again and kind of draw a lot from that. But I also have never seen 42 and I like baseball a lot, so I figured might do that one just so I could watch a new movie and then again dive a little bit deeper into it with the assignment.
There's a good list of movies, honestly. Like I haven't watched a lot of them, so like I was like, oh yeah, I want to watch this. But of course, a favorite is a favorite, so
Yeah.
Right. Like I said, like
like
Air, I want to watch it again and draw away from it, but also I could watch a new movie.
I like
All right.
42.
I'm gonna text these into our group chat. Yeah, I'm kind of excited. When we did our office meeting and we talked about that assignment. It sounds fun.
yeah, I'm excited about that one too.
Didn't you say you guys had to do a map in your other class, Chris?
Yeah. Yeah. We had to do like several different ones
What class is that?
about uh fundamentals of communication.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
So you do a hierarchy map, you do a Kython, uh where there's like four different domains and you got to explain where the movie goes through the different one, the four different domains. And then the last one was like that one was less of a drawing map and more of like a written map where you evaluate characters by trust and then like what behaviors they demonstrate throughout the course. It was pretty good.
Nice.
There is very good movie selection for all of them as well.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out a
I mean, I'm really enjoying the like watching movies for school.
Right.
I was like, I can get into that.
Mhm.
Um, Great. Well, I can bring the next opening ticket for next time.
Or I could do opening and you could do exit.
Okay, that works. Let me write that down.
So you're gonna do, I'll do opening.
Exit for round three. Delaney opening. Cool.
Okay.
Um, so let me look here at when is the next one? And it looks like it is on the 18th. It's due on the 18th. Um, Look at a calendar here.
that's a Tuesday.
So I am going to be traveling out of the country until I think I'm getting back Friday the 14th. So I have like we could theoretically do it Monday if that works for folks.
Yeah.
Um,
I could either even probably do it Sunday night. Sunday night or Monday would probably work for me. You're saying 17th?
yeah.
Okay.
What about you, Chris? I think
I'm
you work
good for
weekends,
either
right?
of those days.
Oh, you're good for either of those days? Okay.
Yeah.
I could just send out a text on Saturday, the 16th, and we can see if Sunday or Monday would be best.
Okay. The 16th is a Sunday.
Saturday the
Okay.
15th.
Okay,
Okay.
cool. That sounds great. Um, what else do we have to cover here? I just want to make sure we got everything.
I just have my exit question.
Great.
Which was what has been your favorite assignment so far, or are you super excited about one that's coming up?
I'm excited about the conflict mapping. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to do.
Hmm.
Yeah. I don't know. I really liked the metaphor one. purely because I got to talk about elephants. But I thought that was a good idea. And as a visual learner, really.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because like the mental model.
Right. The
Um,
object one was fun too, though.
the which one?
The object.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
like
that
that
was
one. But I am looking forward to the conflict mapping again because I just like I really like this movie. I appreciated this. I felt like it was a stretch assignment, the metaphor one, to kind of, really just be concise, something I find challenging, so I'm working on that, but it was a good exercise in that. But yeah, looking forward
I
to the
think
movie.
that there's like a music one too.
And lyrics.
Yeah, which music is like my love language, so I'm really excited for that one.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome
You
job, musical
feel good about
chairs.
everything?
All
yeah.
Heck yeah.
right, great. Well, I will post this likely tomorrow. Uh-oh, you froze. Yeah, likely tomorrow. I'll text you when it's done. That way we can confirm. And then, yeah, I hope you all have like a nice rest of the week.
Mhm.
Yeah, you too.
You
Yeah.
too.
All right.
Thank you.
Take care. Have a good night.
See ya.
Bye.